It's been nearly 30 years since JonBenét Ramsey, a 6-year-old beauty queen, was found murdered in the basement of her Colorado home. And still, her killer walks free. But what if I told you the DNA that could finally solve this case is sitting in a freezer, untouched, because someone in power wants it buried forever? Stay with me. If you believe JonBenét deserves justice, hit like right now to keep her story alive. Share this video so the people who can act feel the pressure, and comment below what you think could finally crack this case and which country you're watching from. Your voice matters. Together, we can push for answers that JonBenét has waited for far too long. JonBenét Ramsey was just 6 years old when her life was brutally stolen. On December 26, 1996, she was found dead in the basement of her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. A ransom note, demanding $118,000, was discovered hours before her father, John Ramsey, found her body. JonBenét had been strangled and suffered a skull fracture. From the moment the investigation began, mistakes and chaos clouded the search for justice. Evidence was mishandled, the crime scene was compromised, and the media frenzy turned her tragedy into a spectacle. Her case remains one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries, not just because of its brutality, but because the truth has been buried under decades of rumors, suspicion, and institutional failures. Nearly 30 years later, the question still echoes: who killed JonBenét Ramsey? Her father is now in his 80s, still begging authorities to test untouched DNA evidence using modern forensic genealogy, believing it holds the key to finding her killer. This case matters because JonBenét deserves more than silence. She deserves truth, and until that happens, we can't look away. From the very beginning, the investigation into JonBenét Ramsey's murder was marred by a series of devastating failures that may have cost the truth. When police arrived at the Ramsey home on December 26, they faced a chaotic scene. Instead of immediately securing the home as an active crime scene, they allowed family, friends, neighbors, and even a victim's advocate to move freely throughout the house. People were in the kitchen, tidying counters, comforting each other, and unknowingly disturbing potential evidence: footprints, fingerprints, fibers, tiny details that could have told the story of what really happened that night. Perhaps most critically, the police didn't separate the family members for immediate individual interviews. In the crucial first hours of any investigation, memories are sharpest, timelines can be clarified, and inconsistencies can be gently probed. Instead, the Ramseys were allowed to remain together, supported by friends and legal counsel, before formal questioning days later, when memories had faded and narratives could align. These missteps weren't just procedural errors, they were missed opportunities that may have closed off avenues of truth forever. And for those who have followed this case for decades, it's a haunting reminder that justice can hinge on decisions made in those first irreversible hours. Then, there's the ransom note. It was found on the staircase hours before JonBenét's body was discovered. The note demanded $118,000, an amount suspiciously close to John Ramsey's Christmas bonus that year. Handwriting analysis was inconclusive, and to this day its author remains unidentified. Over the years, theories have swirled around the family's possible involvement, fueled by media speculation and a grand jury's 1999 recommendation to indict JonBenét's parents for child endangerment. But it's important to note, the district attorney declined to prosecute, and no one in the family has ever been charged in connection with JonBenét's murder. In 2008, investigators found unknown male DNA on JonBenét's clothing, DNA that didn't match her father, mother, brother, or investigators on the case. It was a breakthrough, but even now, nearly 30 years later, that DNA remains untested using modern forensic genealogy methods that could finally identify who it belongs to. The evidence is there. The technology exists. The question is, why hasn't it been used? In 2008, behind the closed doors of an evidence room, whispers began about a single piece of evidence that could change everything in JonBenét Ramsey's case. A single fine strand of blonde hair discovered tangled in JonBenét's small hand. This wasn't the kind of evidence that made headlines. It wasn't part of the heavily publicized DNA updates or press briefings. Instead, it was quietly noted, logged, and then left to gather dust while the world debated theories and pointed fingers. But here's what made it so haunting. The hair didn't match JonBenét, her parents, or her brother. It didn't match the responding officers, and it didn't align with any of the family friends who entered the home that morning. It was, for all intents and purposes, the silent scream of a 6-year-old who may have tried to fight back, grabbing at the last person she saw. Some claimed the hair was too degraded to analyze, while others argued that the technology simply wasn't ready. But today, with advanced forensic genealogy, even a single hair could be the thread that unravels the truth, identifying relatives of a suspect just like it did in the Golden State Killer case. And yet, there it sits, a silent witness locked in an envelope in a cold metal drawer, while those who love JonBenét wait, and the world continues to ask, why hasn't it been tested? For those fighting for justice, this isn't just another piece of evidence. It's a chance to hear JonBenét's voice one more time, a final plea for truth, hidden in the delicate grip of a child who deserved so much more. Because sometimes, it's not the loudest clue that cracks a case wide open. Sometimes, it's the smallest, quietest detail, a single hair held tight by tiny fingers in the final moments of innocence. But nearly 2 decades later, that DNA sits untouched by the most powerful tool we have, forensic genealogy. The same method that identified the Golden State Killer and solved over 250 cold cases could be used to trace relatives, build family trees, and find the person who left that DNA. Private labs have even offered to test it for free, but the Boulder Police Department has refused to release the DNA for genealogical testing, citing internal procedures and control over the case. This refusal has sparked outrage among the public, cold case advocates, and even JonBenét's father, who believes time is running out. People are demanding answers, petitions are gaining traction, and social media movements are rising, asking the question, what are they afraid of finding? Why is JonBenét's DNA being ignored when it could finally bring justice? The technology exists, the evidence is there, so why are we still waiting? In June 2025, investigators in southern Portugal made a chilling discovery. During a search operation tied to the Madeleine McCann case, authorities uncovered fragments of child-sized clothing, scattered bones, and a rusted .25 caliber handgun hidden deep inside an abandoned well. The search area was linked to Christian Bruckner, a convicted sex offender and a key suspect in Madeleine's disappearance. Immediately, speculation ignited. Could this discovery tie Bruckner to other unsolved child cases, including JonBenét Ramsey's? It sounds far-fetched. JonBenét was not shot, and her murder occurred across the ocean in Colorado. But investigators know that predators like Bruckner often cross borders, change methods, and leave patterns only visible when cases are connected. While authorities have not confirmed any link between the gun and JonBenét's case, they haven't ruled it out either. The firearm is now undergoing DNA, fingerprint, and ballistic testing in German labs. Public interest has exploded, with true crime communities and cold case advocates pushing for answers. This discovery may lead nowhere, or it may reveal a hidden thread connecting dark stories across continents. Either way, it reminds us that no case, no matter how cold, is truly over until every clue is followed and every lead tested. And JonBenét deserves nothing less. Nearly 3 decades later, the murder of JonBenét Ramsey remains one of the most debated cases in true crime history. And while no one has ever been charged, several theories continue to circulate, each with passionate supporters and critics. The first is the intruder theory. Advocates, including retired FBI profiler John Douglas, believe an unknown predator entered the Ramsey home that night, possibly through a basement window, and killed JonBenét during a botched kidnapping attempt. They point to the unidentified male DNA on her clothing as evidence supporting this theory. Then there's the family theory, which suggests someone inside the home may have been responsible, whether intentionally or accidentally. This theory gained traction due to the ransom note, the $118,000 demand matching John Ramsey's bonus, and the chaotic handling of the crime scene. However, it's critical to note that no family member has ever been charged, and the grand jury's 1999 recommendation for indictments was later dropped by the DA. Finally, there's the unknown predator theory, suggesting JonBenét's death could be tied to a serial offender whose identity remains hidden, potentially linking cases across borders, especially as advances in genealogy could reveal hidden connections. These theories remain unconfirmed, but they fuel ongoing debates and investigations. What do you think happened to JonBenét Ramsey that night? Drop your theories in the comments below and let us know which country you're watching from. Your voice might help keep the pressure alive until the truth finally comes to light. JonBenét Ramsey was more than a headline. She was a 6-year-old girl who loved Christmas lights, pageants, and dressing up in pink. She was a daughter, a sister, and a child whose laughter once filled a Colorado home before it was silenced forever. Nearly 30 years later, her killer still walks free, and her father, John Ramsey, now in his 80s, has made a heartbreaking claim. They're just waiting for me to die so this case can fade away. Those words should haunt every one of us, because no family should carry that burden, and no child's memory should be allowed to fade because of fear, pride, or bureaucracy. The evidence exists, the technology is ready, but justice remains stalled. We owe JonBenét more than silence. We owe her the truth. If you believe JonBenét deserves justice, help keep her story alive. Hit like to stand for her, subscribe to stay updated on every new development, and share this video so her name is never forgotten. Comment below what you believe will finally crack this case, and let us know which country you're watching from, so authorities know the world is still watching. Stonewalling. It's a word many in the true crime community use to describe what's happened with the Boulder police, and it's not hard to see why. In the early hours of December 26, the Ramsey home became a crime scene, but instead of being sealed off and preserved, it turned into chaos. Family friends were allowed to walk through rooms, the kitchen was used, potential evidence was moved or cleaned, and the family was never separated for individual interviews, crucial steps that could have prevented contamination of evidence or collusion, even unintentionally. These weren't small missteps, they were critical errors that may have cost JonBenét her chance at justice in those first fragile hours, and now, nearly 30 years later, the frustration has only deepened. The Boulder police rarely hold press conferences about the case. They deflect or decline specific questions, often citing that it's still an active investigation. But to many, it feels like silence, a convenient shield that keeps the public and JonBenét's family locked out of the truth. Each year that passes, the gap between the department and the people seeking justice for JonBenét grows wider. The silence is not just an absence of answers, it's become part of the tragedy itself. Because justice for JonBenét isn't just about the past. It's about the courage to demand the truth, no matter how long it takes. What do you think happened to JonBenét? Drop your theories below and tell us which country you're watching from so authorities know the world is still watching. If you believe JonBenét deserves justice, like this video, share it to keep her story alive, and subscribe so you never miss updates on this case.